When it comes to smoke detectors, if you've got beams, you have to take a look at a few things. Let's take 2 minutes to learn a bit more. So beams and joists, when it comes to smoke detectors, are considered equivalent to each other. We don't do things differently if we have beams than if we had joists. It's the same factors that need to be looked at. So what we look at is, what is the ceiling height? What is the beam depth in relationship to that ceiling height? And what is the beam spacing from one beam to the next in relationship to the ceiling height as well? If if the beam depth is less than 10% of the ceiling height, we don't do anything different. We treat it as smooth ceiling spacing. So in our example here, we have a 10-foot high ceiling, which is 120 inches, and our beam depth is only 11 inches. So because we're not at 10%, we don't need to look at any of the other factors. We're going to use flat ceiling spacing. Those smoke detectors can end up on the bottom of the beams, or they might end up in the beam pocket itself. What if we've got 10%? What if the beams project down 10% or more? Well, if the beams do project down 10% or more, we need to take a look at the spacing from one beam to the next. In our example here, the ceiling's 10 foot high, the beams project down 12 inches. 10-foot high ceiling's 120 inches, which means the beams are going to be 10%. However, we have not reached the 40% threshold, so what do? When we are equal to or greater than 10% of the ceiling height for beam depth, but less than 40% of the ceiling height for beam spacing, we use 50% of the flat ceiling spacing perpendicular to the beams. Smooth ceiling spacing is used parallel to the beams, and your smokes might end up on the bottom of the beams, or they may end up in the beam pockets themselves. Well, what happens if we are equal to or greater than 10% and equal to or greater than 40%? So, our example, 10-foot high ceiling, 120 inches. Beams project down 12. All right, we're at 10% there. Beams are also spaced 48 inches apart, which is going to be 40%. So when this is the case, we have to treat each beam bay as its own individual room, which means we're going to put smokes in every single one of the beam pockets.